Mystery of the Chateau 2. This is a continuation of my first video where I discussed the two main characters of the Rennes le Chateau mystery, a church in southern France where a priest found a treasure in 1891. In this video, I want to discuss the parchments that were found. And I'll start off by asking this question to anyone who's more versed in this subject than I am. I'd like to ask if the actual parchments themselves were found. I know, according to Lincoln's documentaries, they show the stone columns that Barignan-Saunière apparently put the inscriptions on, but were the actual parchments found? Henry Lincoln makes it look like he's found them, but I don't believe the actual parchments have been found or were used. Someone, again, more versed in this subject could, but let me just start off by saying that there's a huge flaw in this treasure hunt if the original parchments are nowhere to be found. Anyway, let's talk about those parchments. As I said before, the legend says that Barignan-Saunière found two parchments. Now, some people say it was four, with a couple genealogies, but according to Henry Lincoln, there was only two, so I'm going to go with two. And they were found inside a hollowed-out column that was holding up the altar in the church. The first parchment was a gospel reading written in Latin. In addition to the reading, there were several strange markings around the parchment. These markings almost make it look obvious that the author is trying to draw your attention with some type of code. One looks like a compass, the other one is a P-S, and I'll get to those in a second. Now, inside the gospel reading is a message coded in French, which is odd because the message or the reading is written in Latin. More on that later. But the message reads, quote, "This treasure belongs to Dagobert II, king, and to Zion, and he is there dead," end quote. Now let's ask ourselves, who wrote this coded message? Or better yet, who does the author want us to believe wrote this coded message? And perhaps even why did they write this message? Take special note of the word treasure written in the first sentence. The author wanted you immediately to know that there's hidden treasure somewhere. And I don't think it's coincidental to point out that the widely successful and popular novel Treasure Island was released in 1883, 2 years before Saunière was assigned to the church. Speaking of treasure maps, unlike a pirate treasure map, where the owner uses the map to remember where he hid his booty, this treasure map points out whose treasure it is rather than where it's located. And why is that? Are they trying to remind themselves whose treasure it is? Or are they purposely writing it for a third party to read? Let's think about the two kinds of treasure it could be. If it's a physical treasure, like gold or a chalice, the author implies that they know where it's located or where it was. As the reader, or the decoder of the message, you are to assume that the author did not want the treasure for themselves, for family member, for tribesmen, for institution. No, they didn't need it. Instead, in their benevolence, they would rather reward some stranger in the future for their comprehension and decoding skills. Maybe even an act of defiance towards a king and his treasure. Because notice the author, it's not their treasure, it's the king, Dagobah, or Zion. It's not the author's. But the author is perhaps choosing to give that to someone else, providing you can decode their message. And in their charity towards a stranger, they don't care how you use the treasure, if it's a physical one. You could use it for evil purposes. You could be an evil tyrant, a murderer. Just as long as you can decode the message and have the intelligence to do so, then you should be rewarded. Intelligence trumps decency and morality, according to the author. If it's not a physical treasure, and it's some sort of knowledge, the author implies that they received the knowledge from a 7th century king and Jerusalem, which was destroyed in 70 AD. So it's some very old knowledge. And calling the knowledge a treasure assumes that anyone who has it sees it as a benefit. It's beneficial to almost everyone, although no one who has this knowledge will give it up willingly. That being the author, Saunier, the priest who even gave Saunier his last rites, no one seems to feel that the secret or the knowledge is beneficial to give to anyone, much less everyone. And that's where Henry Lincoln comes in. See, I believe that Saunier wanted the search to be a physical treasure hunt, where Henry Lincoln wanted it to be conspiratorial. Reason being is, I think Henry Lincoln could see that people would be able to connect the dots. Saunier finds a treasure map, and lo and behold, he comes into a lot of money. So anyone with a logical brain says, well, he found the treasure, and he spent the money. He spent the money hard. What else is there to look for? Henry saw this. The story was dead, and he resurrected it and turned it into this, I'll use William Shatner's words, a colossal waste of time. I got to get to the most hysterical part about this first parchment, which is these odd markings that are on the parchment. One of them, again, looks like a compass, and the other one is a P-S. Now, Henry Lincoln wants you to believe that there's this secret society called the Priory of Zion that's been around since the Templars, and it includes some of history's most infamous people, like Sir Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin. You name it, they're in this Priory of Zion. And apparently, this secret that Saunier found was being held by the Priory of Zion. And how do we know that? Because they put their secret code on the parchments. An indistinguishable sign. Fortunately for us, Henry Lincoln cracked their titanium code of P-S to mean Priory of Zion. This secret society is so remarkably intelligent, they came up with this uncrackable code of P-S, and Henry Lincoln's geniusness cracked it for us. Now, the compass had to be turned upside down where it read Zion. So, yes, Henry Lincoln's elite squad of code breakers turned the parchment upside down to read Zion, and that's how they figured it out. So, checkmate, Sir Isaac Newton. Henry Lincoln's got you. To me, it sounds like a code that you would find on Scooby-Doo, solved by Fred, Daphne, and Thelma, or Thelma, whatever the hell her name is. So instead of this grandiose conspiracy theory against the Catholic Church by the Templars and the Freemasons, it's a joke. Let's go back to the parchment and the language it was written in. I told you that it was written in Latin and the code was written in French. So how many people today do you know are bilingual, can read and write 2 languages? How many people 100 years ago outside of the Catholic Church could read and write Latin? How about 1,000 years ago, back in the Templars, the 1200s? How many people could read and write Latin? How many people, when Dagobah was around, could read and write Latin and French? It's extremely unlikely that there was someone living in this tiny little village who had no castle, wasn't royal, but was highly educated and enough to leave a hidden treasure. Henry Lincoln wants you to believe that, and so does Saunier. And sadly, there's a lot of people who just go along with it. The second parchment, I'm not going to get into in this video, if at all. I don't know. The first video I put up did not get many likes, so I'm assuming this isn't very interesting. I'm probably not going to go any more into this. Again, if people found it interesting, yes, I would keep going, but I don't seem to be getting the amount of likes that I wish. So I'm going to end it here. If you like this video, click like. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a good one.